Focaccia has to be one of the most delicious, recognizable breads in the world. The dimples on top, the golden brown crust, the light, airy crumb. It just takes you right to your Nona's house. Or your favorite restaurant, which is why it's on my menu at Parisi's. But I'm gonna cut through the internet noise and show you exactly how it's done to make a traditional, unforgettable focaccia that everyone you serve it to will want more of. Let's first start off with one of the most important aspects of the dough. Sound good? Let's bake. We are going to make a biga, and I'll explain exactly what that is in a minute, but first, I'm going to add 335 grams of bread flour to a large bowl. Now for all my US friends, yes, I measured in cups as well, and it comes out to exactly 2 1/4 cups. But seriously, just buy a scale. It's so much easier to use when making bread, and it's precise, there's no guesswork, and honestly, it's $10, that's it. If you're serious about bread making, you need to get it, take care of it, it'll last you forever. Okay, in that bowl, I'm gonna add in 1 gram or 1/3 teaspoon of active yeast, and yes, instant yeast is totally fine to use here. Then pour in 165 grams or 2/3 cup plus 1 teaspoon of filtered lukewarm water. Now, using your hands, you want to gently mix and fold everything together until it's combined, which should take you roughly 3 to 4 minutes. And the technique of making a biga goes all the way back to the Renaissance period between the 14th and 17th century in Italy, especially in the Liguria region. And it was used for things like pizza, ciabatta, and of course, focaccia. Throughout making the biga, the dough will start to become really shaggy, but that's because it's only hydrated at 50% and tends to be stiffer, which is totally typical, and because it's a pre-ferment, it's going to help the small amount of yeast that we added to it to get a head start in the bread making process to help improve the strength and the gluten in that dough. And you know once it's done because it'll be fully hydrated and there won't be any parts of the dough that have any flour on it. And this biga will represent 50% of the total weight of our finished focaccia. And at this stage, I like to bring the shaggy dough a bit more together to form sort of a loose ball. Then I transfer it over to a Cambro because I always like to get a clear view of what's happening in there as the yeast starts to work. But of course, you can just leave it on the bowl and cover it with a lid or plastic wrap. Let's place on the lid and let it sit at room temperature for 8 to 24 hours. And probably one of my favorite benefits of using a biga is going to be the amazing aromas and flavors that come from it. Yeah, does it take a little extra time? Sure. But think of the people that you're serving. They are gonna know the love that you put into this, and that just makes it all worthwhile. And once it's time to start bread baking, let's pull out the biga, and as you can see, well, not too much has really changed. You should see a few little bubbles in there, but the first thing you should do is smell it and start to understand the aromas at each stage. It is so good. And you'll also notice that it really won't rise all that much, if at all. And you should see some air pockets though if you turn it over. See those? Perfect. The biga at this stage definitely will have come together to resemble more of a finished dough with a bit of stretch to it, and maybe you've seen some of those Italian pizza dough videos. They add a huge piece of what looks like finished dough to a mixer before adding in a bunch of water and more flour. Yeah, that's a biga, and it's almost time to use it, but first, in a large bowl, I've got the remaining 335 grams or 2 1/4 cups of bread flour, and in it, I'm going to pour in 255 grams or exactly 1 cup of filtered lukewarm water. Then using your hands, mix it together to combine everything by squeezing and folding everything over repeatedly. And then you're going to let it sit for 30 minutes and up to 4 hours at room temperature. This process is known as Autolyse, and it's very common in all bread baking. And what it does is it allows the dough to be hydrated completely, and also, more importantly, it turns the complex carbohydrates in the starch into simple sugars. And ask yourself, what does yeast like to feed on? Sugar. This is a good process. Once the flour and water are combined, which takes around 3 to 4 minutes, it'll be pretty sticky and wet, which is all good. And I usually use a dough card to help scrape off as much as possible from my hands. Every little bit helps. Now at this stage, I simply cover it with a kitchen towel, and for me, I'll let it sit in Autolyse for about 30 minutes, plenty of time. Then after that amount of time, let's come back and you'll see the dough is a little less sticky, but it's still really, really soft. On that same bowl and final dough stage, I'm going to add in 85 grams or 1/3 cup plus 1 teaspoon of filtered lukewarm water, along with 3 grams or 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast, and again, just get a scale. Your bread baking life will be happier, okay? And then 2 grams or 1 3/4 teaspoon of coarse salt. I know the salt's probably not going to kill your yeast, but it does inhibit your yeast, and for good reason. If you don't do it, it will eat everything in there. It'll rise too quickly, it'll be sticky, it won't be good to work with, but what it does do, and the huge benefit, it adds awesome flavor, it strengthens the gluten, and it will help make that beautiful brown crust, which everybody wants in bread baking. Now let's grab our big old Biga and add it right to the bowl. Now the first thing I do is I sort of make these finger-piercing motions to sort of press everything in the bowl together, and I do a combination of squeezing, pincing, and folding, and this just helps to get everything completely merged and incorporated. And yes, you're going to get a workout from this. And this part is hands down the most important procedure in this entire focaccia recipe. What you're doing here is making sure all the ingredients are incorporated, the Biga's in with that Autolyse flour, and of course you're strengthening that dough to get that beautiful, open, airy crumb that makes focaccia so special. The final dough will be 50% Biga and have a hydration of 75%, which is right where you want to be when making focaccia. Now, if you're wondering if there's a simpler process to this, like in a mixer, yeah, there is, and I'll show you how to do it in just a minute. But first, get a load of that stretch. Told you the Biga will help with the extensibility. Okay, now to keep stretching the gluten to make sure this rises and is beautifully light and fluffy, I'm going to transfer from the bowl over to the board and using a dough card to help scrape everything out of there and to help bring it together by scraping it up around the sides. Now with this wet dough, we're going to do a series of slap and folds by picking up the dough in the center, slapping it down and folding it forward. This is known as the Bertinet method, made famous by the world-renowned baker Richard Bertinet. It's kind of an intense, way rougher coil fold, if you will. Now, I personally love getting my hands in the mix and working with dough. I just love it. And this process is so important, and over the 8 to 10 minutes we'll do it, you'll start to notice it will become less sticky as the dough begins to strengthen and form. And we're just about to wrap this up before we let it rest for an hour, but first let me just say this. Sticky dough is good dough. Yeah, it's a little hard to work with, but the benefits far outweigh sticky fingers with dough. That's why your bread is so moist, so tender, that beautiful brown crust. All the things you want in delicious bread, we're gonna have it by doing this. Now, every time it gets a little too sticky, I grab the dough card and scrape it up around into a tighter ball and repeat the process. And also, as a little tip, don't add more flour to the dough, that isn't part of the recipe. Instead, try just gently wetting your hands with a little bit of water before kneading. I promise it works, you won't believe it. Alright, a few more folds and it really has great elasticity at this point, so now I'm going to make it as taut as possible because it's time to get this proofing resting on our baking tray. And for focaccia, I like to use a 16 by 12 Lloyd pan. It's non-stick and it's kind of the traditional pan to use when making this. However, a regular 13 by 18 half sheet tray will work. Just make sure it's really oiled up, or even just a plain 13 by 9 non-stick metal casserole pan. This is great, especially for those of you who like super thick, extra mountain high, non-traditional focaccia. It's all good. So for the pan, I'm just going to drizzle on about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and using a pastry brush or just clean hands, rub it in, covering the pan in its entirety. This will help so the dough doesn't stick at all. Now let's grab the dough ball and add it right to the center of the pan, then cover it with a kitchen towel and let it proof for 60 to 90 minutes at room temp, or at least until it's double in size. So for the folks out there who are like, yeah, way too much work, I'm not interested in getting carpal tunnel. Well, in a stand mixer with the hook attachment, add in the 335 grams of flour with the 255 grams of water and mix it on low to medium speed until it's combined. Let it autolyse for 30 minutes, then add in the Biga, the 10 grams of salt, then the 3 grams of active yeast, and finally the 85 grams of water. Mix it together on low speed just until it's combined, which takes around 3 minutes or so, and then crank it up to high and mix it until the dough is formed, and it should completely clean the bowl, and this takes right around 5 minutes or so. And just like my hand kneaded version, it's got great elasticity. Then from there, it goes on an oiled pan, covered up and proofed. And speaking of proofing, let's go have a look, and as you can see, the dough has doubled in size. And it's a bit more slack, but that's totally fine because at this point, using your clean hands, we are going to press our fingertips down, making dimples into the dough while simultaneously stretching it. You want to fit it to all corners of the pan. Now, for some reason you find your fingertips are sticking, just add a bit of olive oil to your hands and continue pressing down. And a little extra fat, never hurt anybody. Now at this stage, we're going to cover it and let it proof for an additional 60 to 90 minutes, and with about 30 minutes or so left in that proofing process, now this is when I like to start preheating the oven. And I'm going to 425 degrees F or 218 degrees C, fan on. And we're so close to baking, but first let's go have a look at the dough, and it's exactly where I want it. Beautiful. Now to add a good amount of fat, evenly drizzle on about 3 to 4 tablespoons of good olive oil. Then using your fingers, create more dimples into the dough. I start on the outsides of the pan and work my way to the center. You'll notice there are air pockets and bubbles that have developed from that proofing process. It's great. For me, the more, the better. Who doesn't like fluffier focaccia anyways, right? The famous dimples are for controlling how and where the bread rises while allowing the pooling of that olive oil. It's like we're frying bread in olive oil. Delicious. And at this stage, I'm going to give it a gentle season of coarse salt, maybe just a half teaspoon or so. Then I'm going to evenly sprinkle on fresh rosemary leaves from about 2 to 3 sprigs. And this right here will get you the classic focaccia alla Genovese. But let's take it a step further, and either you can thinly slice or grab a mandolin and shave and shoot 2 garlic cloves all over the dough. So dang good and well worth it. Grab the pan, and we're going on a middle rack in the oven, baking at that 425 degrees F, fan on for exactly 19 minutes. I've tested this ad nauseum, and it comes out perfect every time. And if you're baking in that deeper casserole dish, add 5 to 6 more minutes. And let's just bring this out because seriously, I don't know how heaven could smell any better than this homemade focaccia. Absolutely gorgeous. Let's have a listen. And of course a scrape. Right on.
The smells are, they're just, I don't even know what to say. They're incredible in here. It just takes me right back to those old school Italian restaurants and why focaccia is just so good. But hey, looks can be deceiving. Let's slice into it and see what we're working with.
Grab a serrated knife, and yep, airy, fluffy, crispy, brown, and ridiculously delicious. And I like to hit it with a bit more olive oil because, well, why not?
So hey, real quick, a lot of folks ask me, how can I support your channel? So I recently launched channel memberships. All you have to do is click the join button next to the subscribe button and follow all the prompts. There you'll get more insider info, history, tips, side dishes, early access to videos, and a whole lot more. And honestly, in the end, no matter if you subscribe or not, I'm just super appreciative that you all are here. I cannot do this without you, and this channel would not be what it is today. So a huge thanks to you all. Oh, it's got that chew. Oh. Salt, garlic, rosemary. Dude, so good.